Does not. No, can't. Okay, I got this, but I can't charge my phone right now. I'll bring up the article.
What's it plugged into?
The microphone.
Oh.
The microphone.
Okay, then it goes through my nose.
What does?
The listening.
Oh.
Really come up my nose.
Okay, it's kind of nice. Welcome to TikTok Live. Our goal, we're supposed to have fun interacting with our viewers in real time. Are you over 18?
Like 30.
You aren't 30.
Basically.
Okay.
If you round up, well, no, actually. Never mind.
Exactly. So
It would almost be 25 is to round up to 30. So basically, I am 30.
Okay. Well, then that way, then I'm like 60. If you put it that way.
Oh, literally, you are.
All right, and I'm gonna try to like go down.
You're closer to 55 than I am to 25.
Okay, technically, yeah, by like a month.
Exactly a month.
Oh, exactly a month. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the live. I am Tony. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. This is Mackie. It's my daughter.
Yeah.
So you say hi.
Hey.
And
Your water out there's not good.
Oh, really? Okay. And then Sydney is behind the scenes. What's up, Sid?
You're seeing things. There's no one back
She might have gone to the bathroom, but Sydney will be. She will be. Really, I identify as 65, so I can collect all the Social Security I paid into. That's funny.
See,
yeah.
You could just use it to your advantage.
Yeah, I'm 54, and at some point I start to get.
When do you become a senior citizen?
Well, the AARP, the Association of Retired People, has already started sending me stuff, but they just want me to pay money.
Before you were actually a senior citizen?
But as soon as
What's the age though for it?
I think it's 60, 65. I don't even know. At some point though, I get senior discounts. I get to get into movies for cheaper, and I'm down for it.
And if you're still like feeling good,
I feel good.
That's not bad.
I feel really good, so I'm down for that. So any of your mental health questions, get them in tonight. I've got a topic to start off with, which I just gave you a little bit of a sneak preview. Have you heard of Doomscrolling? Hopefully none of you are doing that right now. Doomscrolling. Hopefully you are very happily scrolling by and stopping at this live.
I said I know what that is, but now I'm scared I don't know what it actually... It's like a thing, I feel like it's a word I saw, and so then I made out what it is in my head, but maybe I don't know the scientific term.
Sid, do you ever doomscroll? What? Are you a doomscroller?
Occasionally.
Occasionally? Okay, so there's an article in Psychology Today that I wanted to... And this will be our muse for tonight. But get your questions in. If you have anything about mental health related, my advice, Mackie's advice, is not to be mistaken as real therapy, but I am a real therapist. I think that's all that we need to say. Yeah, but you're a very intelligent and a smart person. And as a licensed cosmetologist, you've spent more time talking to your clients sometimes than I have. What's the longest you've been?
That's weird, huh?
Yeah.
I've had like 8-hour days.
8 hours.
One client.
I've had 2 hours sometimes. Okay, so doomscrolling. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you literally doing it right now?
No, I'm pulling up your thing.
Are you? Okay. Doomscrolling. And this is research based. This is by Dan Mager. He's a social worker. And he says that doomscrolling, a new term that succinctly encapsulates the phenomenon of endless attention-consuming scrolling on social media, has recently emerged. Doomscrolling, and it specifically relates to spending time in contact with disturbing news through social media. So it's where you keep going back to things that seem hopeless or conspiracies or and with the way that algorithms work. Here's where I sound like the old man, that your algorithm continues to feed you what you're looking at. So if you're looking at more of that, then it kind of perpetuates itself. So that, doomscrolling.
But so it's not just when anytime you're sitting there and you accidentally scroll for like hours on end.
If you're watching,
and I don't know that I actually have.
If you're watching funny dog and cat videos or little kids saying swear words or people dancing, that's not doomscrolling.
Hey.
Oh, that looks good. I need a hat and a mustache. Right there, it was confirmed. But no, so doomscrolling.
I thought that was still doomscrolling.
No.
I know, that doesn't count?
But it's not like it's really a good thing though, right?
Well, it's not. There's probably better things to do. Although I've got a strong theory on this. So if you are ruminating and beating yourself up and constantly thinking what's wrong with me, then I would rather have you looking at dog and cat videos and little kids saying swear words and people dancing. But not doom. So let me give you the research. It says researchers surveyed 800 university students from 2 distinctly different cultures, the U.S. and Iran, to explore how excessive negative news consumption on social media can impact their thoughts and feelings relating to their lives.
So it's just the negative.
It's the negative.
About the dogs and cats.
No, that's what I'm saying. Those are good. They're adorable. They're fun.
Then I don't doom scroll.
Don't you?
I avoid that. There's a whole side of TikTok that's like called Hopecore.
I don't know that
And it's
one.
all the tender stuff.
Okay.
And I watch like things like that.
Okay, so Hopecore, we're down with that. So that makes sense.
It's tender. It's like military homecomings.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Like,
and cute animals and things like that. Yeah. The research confirms what lived experience has suggested for some time, that viewing disturbing news on social media can be a source of, and they call it vicarious trauma, where somebody has distressing psychological effects even though they didn't experience trauma directly. So sometimes people can get so caught up in the stories about what other people's trauma that it's this almost secondhand trauma. Lisa's doomscrolling article. Yeah, it is a great question. It's on, if you go to psychologytoday.com right now, it's actually the main article, the first article there, and it's how exactly is doomscrolling, what exactly is doomscrolling and how does it affect us. So I like what you're saying though, because if you can intentionally look toward this hope, what is it called?
Hope core.
Hope core. Okay.
But is it not just is doomscrolling not just the equivalent of people watching the news for as long as it's
for sure. Yeah. No, it's I mean, back in my day, the old person, when you would just watch the news incessantly, and people still do it.
That's the same thing.
It would be. Yeah,
this
I'm
is
sure.
Just modern.
Yeah,
doing.
I'm sure that would be doom watching.
That's why I don't like. I mean, I feel like the news. I guess the news is still a thing, but I never have watched the news in my life because it's sad.
I'm curious if anybody here, if people that are watching right now, if you are open to throwing in the comments, do you watch the news on regular TV, or do you just consume news through social media?
That people still watch the news on TV.
Yeah, well, I wonder what the age limit is there.
Have, TV providers.
Okay, Dylan, I have a question. Ask away. Sydney is manning the questions right now, so we'll pull up the document. Sid, do you want us to do that? Okay, so we'll pull up a document. So get your questions there, Mr. Gibbs. I try to watch local news, so I would be curious, Mr. Gibbs, if that is our Happy Steven? I watch the news. So is that something that, if you've been watching for years, does it cause you to feel more hope? Or have you felt less hope watching the news? Okay, random dumb thoughts. I watch local news. I'm really curious then to know. Pete, it really depends. I don't trust the government or the media, so I find it difficult to watch. And I think that's where Pete, a lot of people are at that point right now. So do you trust the things you see when you see news-related things on social media?
Unfortunately, yeah, and I think it's because I'm a kid.
I'm a kid? Okay.
I think because I've grown up with...
Matthew, I'm tired of the narrative. Yeah. Okay, is that dad? I am her dad. Yeah. Teresa, I don't watch the TV news. I consider myself older. Okay, 38. Oh, I am curious about that. Jennifer, you have a question, feel free to ask. Sydney will get those on the document that I have still yet to pull up. Happy Steven, everything's negative. And Steven, you're happy. So everything being negative, that is...
We're not watching the news.
No, that is called cognitive dissonance. Steven's trying to go about life and have happy times, and then there's negative things, so that doesn't fit. So there is it does make me wonder a little bit, the more news channels there are. Again, here's where I sound like a 100-year-old man, because when I was a kid, there were 3 news channels. Wasn't that wild? Three TV stations.
That means nothing. I don't, how many are, oh, what do you mean?
Okay, random dumb thoughts. It doesn't really get me down. Okay, but it says, let's see, but I do see a lot of negativity on the news. So see, this is what's interesting too, because random dumb thoughts, I'm more along the lines where you are too, where I see a lot of the negativity on the news, but it's not like I'm saying, so I just choose to be happy, but I kind of I notice that those are stories. I feel my feelings, but then I don't want to just get attached to that, because I think that's part of this.
I think if I see, I move on. Not move on, but I almost don't even let my brain process it, because I know it'll be uncomfortable.
Yeah. So Dylan and Sid, we can jump into Dylan's question right here, because I think it would actually tie in. How to get rid of depression, been fighting for years and made very little progress. Dylan, let me kind of start with a little bit of I'm going to go in a different direction. I would love for you to chime in, because I think that a lot of times we just look at things like depression as maybe it's the chemical side of depression, but I really do feel like, and we've been talking about this lately, is you've started to really feel like you're in a good spot in life.
Yeah. Which, throw it out there, I struggled with depression severely for years.
Well, do you want to talk about, we were just talking about, oh, thanks, Steve. Okay, giving them the roses there. Do you want to talk about, we were just talking about this in February. It's now September. You want to talk about that right now?
We can't, I mean, what do you
That you were talking about what a difference it made when, in February till right now.
I was barely surviving.
Yeah.
Literally, couldn't make it through the day surviving, couldn't get out of bed surviving. In February, thought things would never get better, and now it's September, and genuinely, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And so, who's this good, Dylan?
I think so. Yeah.
It's not always going to feel the way that it is, first of all. That's not even getting into the, things, but it's really not going to feel like this forever.
Yeah. But I will acknowledge, though, and this is where I wish almost that we could, lay on the couch, and I'll throw some real therapy skills at you. But Dylan, a lot of times I feel like people are, they're in situations they don't really feel like they're, I'm going to sound cliched, but living their best life. Mm-hmm. They're doing things because they think these are the things that they're supposed to do, and they aren't really, and again, cliche number 2 here, they're not really aware of who they are. And a lot of times when we grow up, we just start to take on the values or the goals of those, our caregivers or those around us. And so there's a concept where we start just, we're doing the things we think we're supposed to because we don't want to let other people down or get people upset with us. And those are called socially compliant goals. And so your motivation when you do those things is it's pretty weak and ineffective because it isn't about what it feels like to be you. It's like I'm trying to figure out who I need to be. And so I think the sooner you start figuring out who you are, as cliched as that sounds, would you agree?
Does that help? You can start feeling okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think so, because I mean, it's like you're saying, but you're not living. It's like you're almost not letting yourself live I don't say the right life for you, but like the life maybe you are. That you're here to live. Yeah. And so it's like when you do that, I think automatically like your baseline and everything moves up a little bit. Yeah. So then I think it does help. Like I don't know that it would fix everything, but I think it helps. Yeah. So what I'm kind of saying here, if it sounds confusing, is that one of the best things that you can do is just slowly but surely first start from a place of people want to say that nothing's wrong, or people like to say that what's wrong with me, I'm broken, and that's where I will always want to go with you are the only version of you that's ever walked the face of the earth. And so I thought you were gonna say you're not broken, you're
I'm getting there. Oh, I'm about to go there because I'm going to say if you're the first version of you that's ever walked the face of the earth as you, and then you are just going about life, and these are the thoughts I'm thinking, and these are the feelings I'm feeling, then you're not actually broken, you're human. And then but others are trying to tell you, well, here's what I think you should do. And so then we're going, okay, if I do this, then I'll be happy. And then I do that, and maybe it didn't really work. Then I feel like, man, I can't even do the things people are suggesting. I must be really broken. But again, you're not, you're human. And so one of the most important things is just to start accepting the fact that, okay, I'm okay. And so I'm noticing I feel bad, I feel depressed, I feel down, but I got to start from a home base. But I'm okay. And then when I start doing things that matter to me, like what are the things that you started doing that really had you starting to feel like you?
Recently or ever?
Anytime.
I don't know. I feel like
Jimmy. You needed to hear that.
Yeah. I started with like dumb things. Like sometimes I feel like you have to start with dumb things because I was just like, originally that's when I taught myself piano,
drawing,
guitar, and I started drawing, and I got into makeup, and like I literally was going for anything that I could care about. Yeah. But I think that's okay. Like even if it is kind of trial and error, like just finding something that you care about. Yeah. Is like huge.
Oh, Jennifer Big right there. She says I'm starting to accept that I'm okay. Whoa. Not bad, not wrong. I just am. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because that is you just are, and that's fine. That's being human.
Yeah. And what I liked about what you were doing, Mack, is, and I'll go another little side tangent. I interviewed a lady on my podcast named Marla, and she talked about after she got out of a really bad marriage after 20 years. She said, I didn't even know what my favorite candy bar was. So she said she went out and bought 20 candy bars and just started saying, let's figure it out.
And figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. Dennis, feeling comfortable in your own skin and doing and pursuing what you want. That really is a pretty big key there, Dennis.
And I think that is the weird little, you do the random trial and error things until you find something that you feel anything for, and then it's like you can just run with that.
Yeah, and I think what's really fascinating about that too is though when you start to do the things that you want to do, you're most likely already in a relationship or a family system with people that are used to you not doing those things. So when you start to do them, it's not like everybody's going to jump up and down and say, okay, cool. You know, they're going to say, oh wow, this isn't something that you normally do, or why do you think that that's okay to do that? And that's the thing where now we're getting into one of my favorite topics lately of then we feel uncomfortable, and what do we do with our discomfort? A lot of times we play small. So it's like, oh yeah, you know what, I actually don't want to, like, let's say that you said, hey, can I get some I don't know, art supplies? And if I was like, really? Like, you're not much of an artist, are you? Then what? I mean, especially if you're feeling down, I know you'd start crying, right?
Wouldn't talk to you for a whole day.
Yeah, Jimmy H. We mask, absolutely. Yeah, it's like, okay, this is who I think I should be, because then that's where we were looking for validation. I think that's one of the most interesting things. I was going to say sad, but it's like that's the way we get our sense of self is from right. But we get it from external validation until we don't. So we start from this place of I do kind of need somebody to tell me, is this okay? Until I realize, wait, I'm actually okay, and I think that's a really important thing. Okay. Oh, Sid. Okay.
You should answer Elle's question because I really relate to that.
Oh, Elle. Okay. How to stop laughing in therapy during unfunny conversations? I know I'm just avoiding my emotions. Oh, Elle, this is good.
Yeah, people laugh.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like a lot.
Yeah, there was a time where there was a couple that they were in, and they were going through betrayal. There was infidelity. The wife just was dying laughing, and I was thinking, I'm missing something. I'm missing. And I like a good joke, and inside
You're
of my
like, guys,
head,
tell me what's
I
funny.
know, right? And then she just said, she's like, I'm sorry, I laugh hysterically whenever I'm uncomfortable. Yeah. And so, first of all, and Jimmy, yeah, I smirk. And I will tell you, as a real life practicing therapist, there are jokes going through my head a lot, and that one it is kind of fascinating because every now and again somebody will then say the thing that I'm thinking, and boy, you can't help it. You're sharing a laugh at a pretty awkward moment, but sometimes that can really break the tension. But here's what I think. Oh yeah, Jennifer, I do that too. It's so bad it's an avoidance of feeling. So here's that concept. We have primary emotions and we have secondary emotions, and this is so fascinating. So secondary emotion, typically humor is a secondary emotion. And so your primary emotion might be shame, guilt, embarrassment, fear, anger, but then we immediately go to our secondary emotion of humor. And there's Julie Lee, that there's a co-host of my Love ADHD podcast. I've got a podcast about ADHD, and my co-host, one of the first times I met her, I was interviewing her about a book she wrote, and then she was talking about a really, really touching moment in her life, and then there was silence, and then I cracked a joke on the interview. I think she put it in her book talking about that, and I never felt more silly in my whole life, but it was like that was my secondary emotion because it was just there was like this heavy emotion. I didn't know. Yeah. I mean, I should have said, tell me more about that. What's that like? But so when the question is, how do I stop laughing in therapy? Here's one of my favorite things. Just accept the fact that, oh, check that out, I'm laughing. Because then if you can really dig down and, okay, what I'm laughing, but what's my primary emotion there? And do you remember when you guys would scare us a lot, Mom and I? Do you remember this at all?
When we were little?
Not like
no recollection. Like a couple weeks ago?
So couple weeks ago?
Jumping out of the closet?
Okay.
Remember how freaking weird you were?
I was not saying how weird you were. I know.
Really
There's a point here. There's a point. So it's where I think this has happened. This is the best, well, not the best. This is a good example, I think. So when an adult walks around a corner, a little kid scares him. Boo. And if the adult goes, geez, hey, don't do that. Or I could have dropped this or something like that. That's anger. But the primary emotion is embarrassment. This little kid embarrassed me. So when a person can sit with that primary emotion, then they can just go, oh my gosh, like you got me, and that's okay. And so when you can learn that it's that pause, sit with the primary emotion, then you won't go to that secondary emotion. And this is why, comedians typically have some pretty dark thoughts or past, because they've just learned that
to
humor,
jump to that secondary emotion and all those feelings.
And I will tell you, I personally think that my secondary emotion of humor has been there for so long that I now kind of do think it's my primary emotion, that my first thought is jokes.
And then whatever
first
one comes back.
There's also a thing called inappropriate thought syndrome that I think we've talked about a couple times, and that's the one where if you're at a funeral, and you're kneeling in front of a casket and all of a sudden you're just like, you can't help yourself and you start laughing. I was going to say, have you ever done that? But can you think of any places where you should not have laughed?
No, I'm too afraid of getting in trouble.
Oh, okay.
That takes over too much that I don't think my body would let me.
Okay.
My body doesn't let me sneeze in public places.
Really?
Yeah.
Does it try to?
Yeah.
And do you hold them back?
And I can't do it. I'll be like, okay, I'm going to do it, and I'll wheel. And then it goes away.
Oh,
I trained myself to never get in trouble.
Yeah.
So I seriously think my body wouldn't allow that. So no, I haven't experienced that.
Interesting. Yeah. You have? Okay, what? Wait.
I don't know if it's every situation.
Yeah, I can picture you laughing at some...
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure we were talking about something really sad the last episode, and I made a your mom joke.
You did.
Oh,
yeah,
you did.
Yeah,
your mom's house or
and
whatever.
I wasn't even aware that happened until
yeah.
after. I was listening to myself at the same time as you guys.
I wanted to go find that clip. I would love to find out what it was, because I said something like...
said your mom's house.
Yeah, your mom's house.
Grandma's house?
Yeah. Okay, Sid, we've got to find that clip. Okay, and actually this will fit in with Dylan's question of how do I eliminate negative thoughts, because I get them a lot and they affect me bad. Sid, thoughts on that one?
What was it?
Dylan, how do I eliminate negative thoughts, because I get them a lot and they affect me bad? We've talked about this one a bunch, huh?
For me, I think it was changing the idea from eliminating it to just coexisting with those negative thoughts, and I know, because we always talk about what you can't control your thoughts.
You can't stop your thought. You can't control your thought. So you change your relationship with your thought. Yeah. Hannah says to watch your haul. Her haul.
Yeah. Sorry, Hannah. I didn't do that.
Okay, so here's and this is what Sid's talking about that I really appreciate, is that it really is changing the relationship with our thoughts, because if you try to stop having a thought, I don't know, do you want to do it?
Think of a purple polar bear dancing on a blue skateboard.
Wait, you're supposed to say don't think about that.
Oh, don't think about it.
Don't think about what?
what did I say?
A purple polar bear.
Purple polar bear standing on a blue skateboard.
And
Don't think about it.
Everybody just did. So that's the thing where you can't. It's called psychological reactance. It's built in. It's innate with us. It's our instant negative reaction of being told what to do. It's there so we don't get dominated by a corrupt society, or the theory is like an alpha male, or any of those kind of people. So it's like when somebody says, you know what you need to do, I don't know, the first thought I'm thinking is exactly what I will not be doing, what you're about to tell me to do. Right?
So that's just like in us.
It's just in us. Yeah. So you have to be aware of that. So if you have these negative thoughts, it's and I appreciate Kendrick saying underlying problem is causing the negative thoughts. That can be true, but then also our brain just fires things off, and we make significance of them.
How many thoughts do we have in a day?
You hear it's thousands, 10,000, 16,000, something like that. So sometimes it is to say, okay, what is that negative, that internal thing? So you're in a certain area, and then you continually think a certain thought. So that would be a trigger. So if all of a sudden I'm this is where when people, I work with a lot of couples, and if one of the people in the relationship doesn't feel safe, and when they hear their spouse drive into the driveway, all of a sudden their heart rate starts to elevate. So there's that kind. So now their thought is triggered by an emotion, and that emotion is something they weren't even aware of. So that's one thing. But then another one is just randomly walking around and thoughts pop up, and this is part of that thing called inappropriate thought syndrome. And so it's the concept where we all have wacky, crazy, inappropriate, disgusting, all those kind of thoughts. And then the second part of that is just because you have them doesn't mean anything. I mean, every time I go to a hotel, and when we would stay at the Embassy Suites as kids, when we would go there, and we'd cram everybody into one hotel room, and it had like free popcorn, and you got to see the big koi fish. If we were up 4 or 5 floors, my first thought was like, I could totally leap, Never did I do it.
Not even one time?
Not even one time, because I'm not that strong a swimmer.
You can't swim.
I can't swim very well. Yeah,
It's
and
not that
those
you're
koi
not
fish are
strong.
very, very large. But then everybody has them. Just because you have them doesn't mean you're bad or you're going to do anything about it. And then the third thing is you can't tell yourself not to think the thing that you're thinking. So I think that's a really key point there. So how to eliminate negative thoughts? Honestly, Dylan, it's accepting that I'm having those thoughts. Check that out. Because you are Dylan, you're going along, you're having a great day, and now check that thought out. There it is. That's a thought. And I have another cowboy hat. That's a good look. You look good with a mustache.
That's the
You ever been told
nicest
that?
thing you've ever said to me.
You have a thought? Okay.
I forgot it.
Okay. That was
Is it about
fast.
My mustace?
That was really fast, Sid.
That was.
Wait, there we are
It's
again.
been so long since that's happened.
Okay. Pete, thank you for it's a good look for me. I think I need a cowboy hat. I really do. I have a very large head, though. I've tried to get those at a hat store before. And
Oh, I remember. Okay.
There it is. Okay.
There was something if I'm wrong, but
Okay.
something that was for me with like the inappropriate thought syndrome, because I have that one really bad, is like the knowledge that it usually like attacks things that are important
Yes.
to you or things that you love, because like I had this growing up when I was like younger all the time, and it would like attack like my family in my head because I love them, or like my dogs in my head. Like it'd be like I'd like be like, oh, hi mom, like just got back from school, like sunny day, everything's fine, and then in my brain it's like, oh, I just killed my mom. Like,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
And like so realizing that like it has no correlation to like your morality.
Mm-hmm.
Like it does, but it's just the fact that like it will attack the things that you actually love and that
Yes.
actually mean a lot to you. So like you're not a bad person for having these bad thoughts, because that's what I struggled with for so long.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, Sid, because that's the OCD of thought, or we talk about things like scrupulosity, like OCD of religious thought, or just, I think they call it pure OCD, but your OCD will always attack what is important to somebody. And I had a client at one point that was, they just were addicted to Q-tips in their ears, and then the origin story there was that their parents were awesome, but they would continually say, hey, your ear aches, don't worry about them, it's not a big deal, and then at some point then I think their eardrum had burst, and then they'd put medication in there, and it just stung so bad. And so then at that point, that person, was so obsessed with making sure that their ears weren't going to hurt anymore that they just obsessively cleaned them with a Q-tip. So yeah, it'll attack what's important. Let's see, April, wait, oh, the question went away. Oh wait, okay, I'll go back to the SIDS list here. Which one? Okay, do you see these? Okay, we got the Dylan, how to eliminate negative thoughts. So acceptance.
That's the oldest one.
This one right here, marriage, relationship related. How to get more connected to my partner, exercises, and where to start. Oh, Jennifer, I got a new one right now as a couples therapist, and this one you actually inspired me a little bit. You ready for this?
I'm scared.
Yeah, it was when. So I think a lot of times. So first of all, there's a really cool concept where more connected to your partner. And so I think that we often say that we want intimacy or connection. Matter of fact, I think I said this last time. In a relationship, but what we're really looking for is validation. Because when we say we have an opinion that differs from what my partner thinks, then they will often say, oh wow, I didn't know you felt that way, or I can't believe you said that. Or so we typically find ourselves only talking about the things that are easy to talk about over time. And so one of the challenges is that to really know somebody, that's it. Like, it takes courage to really know somebody, and it takes courage to be known as a person.
Yeah, when you said that last time, I
right?
had to
you had a
sit there
moment.
for a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. So the way to get more connected is to be able to really understand who my spouse is, and to understand and really have them understand who you are. So this is what you inspired me for. When we were talking about when you go to a movie, for example, right? And if you go to a movie and you're continually just worried, thanks, Ellen. If you're continually worried about how this person is, what are they having a fun time? Do they like the movie? Do they not like the movie? And meanwhile, you're not present. You're not having a good time with the movie. And Mackie and I did a podcast where you talked about going to the Barbie movie.
One of the best movies that's ever happened, ever.
By yourself.
I went by myself. First time in my whole life doing anything like that.
You were terrified at first, right?
Yeah, I almost didn't go. I called you guys
you did.
before, and
Yeah,
I was
we were
like,
you can go, you can go. But then what was that experience like?
It was the best movie experience I've had to this day.
Because?
Ever. And it's when I had that, epiphany, because I wasn't worried about what anyone else thought, because nobody else was, I didn't know the people sitting next to me.
Yeah.
So it was just me and the movie and every feeling that, came with it.
Yeah.
And then nobody asked me right after, what did you think of it? So it's I got to process for myself how exactly I felt about it. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I really thought it was so good. And so now I try to do that when we go watch movies. I try to just be like, who cares? Because we went and saw, what did we saw? We saw the Willy Wonka one or whatever with Jake.
Yeah.
And he was
he hated it.
Stupidest thing you've ever made. He was just so mad about it.
I was having a great time.
And even then, I was like, whatever.
Yeah, right?
I liked it.
I did. So, Jennifer, the reason I tell this story, or why I like Mackie telling this, is that I think one of the things you can do, there's a lot of, if you want a real simple exercise, there are books there, you can Google this, you can throw it into some AI, but just questions to get to know your spouse better, or your partner better, but then answer those. You have to answer those separate from them, and literally write down your answers, and then you have a big reveal. So what I've been giving my clients homework with, which sounds a little bit simple, but it really is, you go to a movie, you watch a TV show, you listen to a podcast, and I want you to jot down the things that you are...
just what you're thinking.
Yeah, what you're thinking.
Moment.
And then, because you can't say, well, what'd you think? What'd you think? Because then you're playing off of each other, and that's, again, where we're not...
It's lock in the answer before you can change it to try to people please. And
totally,
whatever.
and it is the people pleaser, because that's not a way to really become more close or connected to your partner. Now, the challenge here, though, is you both have to be invested in this, because you're going to say things that if they haven't heard them before, they may have reactions. And this is that concept of differentiation, where the goal is to maintain or grow a connection with somebody while still maintaining your own sense of self, your own autonomy. And so the more that you learn about things, do you have that courage to express that to your partner? But even more so, what do? I mean, this is where you get into that anxious attachment style, avoidant attachment style. If you're expressing yourself and they don't say a word, then that feels pretty disconnected
never want
too.
To do it again.
You don't, right?
Why am I even wasting my time?
Yeah. Okay, so do you...
Wait, I have a thing that is... Because what's the question? That one?
Yeah.
Connected to?
Yeah.
Well, okay, I was talking to Mom today.
Okay.
Your wife.
My wife.
And
okay.
because I was telling her, because football started today.
Mm-hmm.
And so I spent the day watching for the days with my boyfriend, and I don't know.
How was that?
I don't know how.
Right.
I don't even know anything about it. Genuinely have no clue what's happening ever. But I told my mom, your wife, I was going over there to watch football. She's like, "You're a really good girlfriend." I was like, "Thanks." But then she told me that I think her
grandpa.
Somebody died. Then she
this.
went and asked her grandpa, or you guys asked her grandpa his best marriage advice or whatever. And he said that it's spending quality time with them, even if it's something you don't care about.
Yeah, but and you know what's funny? He's so spot on. And then what I've thought about that in my career as a marriage therapist, it's box or box, and they will then want
I wanted to go spend time with my boyfriend.
Yeah, and then
Didn't
were
care
you
what it
very
was.
present?
I was just chilling.
Were you asking questions and all that kind of stuff, or not yet?
Not really.
Okay, that's okay. Yeah.
He was a little reactive.
Okay. To watching the game? It is funny that it's funny today.
He cares a lot, so I need to care.
Okay, when you get home, if you go look in the garage and see we redid everything in there. Like was one where I wanted to go on a run, but your mom was gonna stay out there and work, and so then I just said, okay, I'm in. And so for
you just go be there.
Yeah, and I thought it was good. I had a good time.
Yeah.
And then I still got to go on a run in 102-degree weather.
Which
Hello,
like
Arizona.
Just spending that more time.
Yeah. So
even if it's not doing anything crazy.
Right.
Wait,
but
can we answer Isabel's?
Yeah. But Jennifer, thank you for the question, and I hope that didn't sound like we were...
I tried to find it, but I couldn't find it.
Isabella?
I wrote it in the file. It's like,
oh wait, I definitely feel he has some Wait, that one?
Yeah, it's like I tried to find every time that she talked.
Okay,
about
I
it.
definitely feel he has some trauma, and he just shuts down when I try to have a serious conversation. Shuts down when I try to talk to him on intimate topics. So, great question. And so this is where, how does he deal with his discomfort? And he shuts down. And that is a pretty common response when somebody doesn't... There's a lot of reasons behind that. So if you are going to, I would recommend couples therapy. I really would. Because in that scenario, what happens is... And let me kind of, I know I don't know your situation, Isabel, but I work with a lot of couples where somebody will just say, in that scenario, let's say that you're in my office and you just say, you know what, I can't keep doing this. And the reality is, and I'd never want this to sound dismissive, but you are, because it's continuing to happen. And so if he just doesn't open up, or he just shuts down and then just kind of stonewalls, or just goes into that freeze response, and then eventually now you just say, okay, fine, I guess we're not going to talk about this, and then leave, then, I mean, I hate to say it, but that rewards the behavior in a sense. It's a little bit of an enabler. And so in that scenario, though, now he just alleviated his discomfort, and now typically a person in that position, they're fine. So that's where you can continue to put pressure on the relationship and hope for change by saying, hey, what, because I would imagine this is where you've probably tried a lot of things. I've tried to just do the things that he wants to do. I've tried not to talk about difficult topics. I've gotten really angry. I've gotten really sad. I've been really conversational. Maybe I've tried humor. And if he still doesn't open up, then that's the way that he's dealing with his discomfort. And so that's where you have every right to say that this is not working for you in the relationship. And so you really need to see some change, and that's okay. And this is that concept where if we call it a gridlock situation, where you're not, in essence, getting your needs met, and then you're not trying to now manipulate, coerce, control, but you're starting to recognize that, man, I'm not feeling this connection, and that's where people start to then shut down, inside emotionally. And so in that scenario, you take your unresolved personal issue out of that gridlock situation, which is that, hey, I really want more connection in the relationship, and you basically kind of confront it as an act of personal integrity. So this is okay. I know this would be good for me, and actually I know it would be good for the relationship. So that way you can go and you can continue to ask for that, because it is okay to ask for things in our relationships when you're doing it from a place of, this is what I really want in a relationship. I want connection. I want to be able to communicate about things. And if he's just saying, yeah, I don't know how to do that, well then it's okay for you to say, well, I really need this to happen. And that's one of the difficult things about being a couples therapist, is that in those scenarios, you're pressuring the relationship for growth, but oftentimes we think that the growth part means that then eventually they'll say okay, and they'll open up and you'll live happily ever after. But pressuring the relationship for growth can mean you may also discover that your partner is unwilling or unable to really open up about their emotions. And that might then cause you to realize, okay, I deserve to be in a relationship where we have intimate conversations, or we have a connection, and that's the stuff that's really difficult to deal with. But you really do deserve to be in a relationship where you have somebody that's curious about your experiences, and you can share and open up. So I hope that helps at all. It can be really scary, though, I think. Do you have thoughts on that?
No.
Okay.
I wouldn't know how to, I know what it's like to try to be talking to somebody that just shuts down like that, and it's brutal.
It is.
And I don't know. Yeah, you said good things, because I wouldn't know how to even start besides just getting upset.
Yeah, and so yeah. Oh, then there's another one. She said, "How do I cope?" I saw that one, or help him open up more than shutting down, rather than shutting down. I mean, you can do all the. This is one of the most difficult things about, if you are starting to really recognize, and you really do have to find your own sense of self and know that I am okay, and it's okay for me to want these things in the relationship. And there's a couple of concepts here. It's important to manage your own, be able to validate yourself, because that's the problem that we run into, is if we get really angry or upset, we're basically asking our spouse to make it better for us. But if I know that I'm okay and I can self-regulate, then I can have those conversations and be pretty grounded. Let's see.
Do you have couples where one person is just not willing to change?
For sure.
Ever?
Yeah.
And do you feel like what do you do with that?
It's
or is it just like, can you do anything about it, or is it just?
Well, this is that thing where it's funny. I was reading this article that somebody wrote today. Then they were just going on saying that couples therapy doesn't work, and they're not couples therapists. So there were a lot of there were a lot of couples therapists in the comments saying, okay, maybe ask a real couples therapist. And so you do assume that people are both coming in and they want to change. But typically one person is kind of fed up or had enough in the relationship, and they finally say, they pressure that other person, saying, I can't do this anymore. And then the other person, yeah, exactly.
Style. So
the other person's then saying, okay, fine, I'll go. But then if that person's going with that attitude, and I was talking about this to your mom earlier today, there's a psychologist, I'm enjoying some of his content. He talks about behavior is a language. So if they are unwilling to express that they don't feel comfortable going to therapy because they feel insecure, or they're afraid that they won't say the right thing and then you might leave them, their behavior is speaking a language. That behavior of not working on themselves, not going to therapy themselves, not reading books about their avoidant attachment style, not doing those things, unfortunately it is speaking a language. And so that is giving you some of the information that you need in order to know, is this relationship viable? So that's a long-winded way to say that most of the time you don't get both people coming in saying, hey, we're just looking for some tune-up in our communication. One person's kind of done and they're pretty frustrated or upset. And then but sometimes that really is the jump start that the other person needs. And that's a whole other side of couples therapy, where somebody just says, yeah, but now I'm frustrated that it took me basically saying I'm ready to leave for you to finally do something. And then the couples therapist in me sometimes says, man, that is, I want you to feel all those feelings and all those emotions. You can be angry, but then also, this is what you were asking for. And so it's okay for you to ask for this in the relationship. But then it's up to that other person to really start to look at themselves, because they can't just say, okay, fine. Okay, no, we're good. I went to therapy. They have to really start to look at themselves and say, okay, why am I unwilling to open up? Why am I unwilling to give my spouse what they are asking for? Because is it something that they really feel like they are unable to offer? Or is it something they just don't want to? I mean, because then we start kind of looking at that's a little bit selfish, Yeah. Yeah, because I would imagine you, as the person saying, I don't know what else to do, you're the one trying to do things. I think that's one of the most frustrating parts, is that the one that is trying to get the other person to therapy, or the one that's the more anxiously attached, or they're continually reading the books, listening to the podcast, wanting the relationship to be better. But then when they put that pressure on their partner and their partner doesn't show up, it just makes them feel more unlovable. But their partner is I don't know what that's like, being an avoidant attachment,
Okay, speaking of avoidant attachment, how do you tell if someone has an avoidant attachment or if they're a narcissist?
Okay, so that's a great question.
/ emotionally immature.
Yeah, is that, yeah. So this is where, and somebody just said, where's their younger daughter?
I'm in the corner.
She's in the corner.
What is up?
She's in trouble.
She's facing the wall in the corner.
Yep, with a little dunce cap on,
Nice.
little propeller, right? Spin that propeller, Sid. And do you even know that reference? That dunce cap?
When you said that, I had weird things flow through my brain that I don't.
Like a childhood memory of you being in a corner?
Yeah, with my little. No, I feel like I don't know if it was a show or like a something, but I've seen.
Oh yeah.
There was something from my childhood that has to do with that, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Did you put me in a corner with it?
No, but this is that part
I
where.
have a memory of me in a corner.
Wait, you do for real?
No.
Yeah.
Wait, what's your memory for real?
I don't know. I was like on timeout or something, or maybe honestly, like maybe.
Was it at Miss Moore's?
I was gonna say we didn't do. Mom and I weren't so good at the timeouts because we're all perfect little angels.
Aww.
So we need the drum kit to tune.
Oh yeah, no, that's true.
But okay, this avoidant attachment and narcissist. So.
Based on your age, it's the movie Matilda. I actually didn't see Matilda
okay,
until the first time I saw it in my life was last week.
Wait, what?
Unless we watched it as children, I have no recollection of it.
Did we watch Matilda?
Matilda.
Sid?
I don't think we did.
Was she the? Wait, I don't even know who she was. Did she have like a little blue dress, and was she like in?
I don't remember, and I watched it last week.
She didn't have a bear, right?
A bear?
No.
Are you just saying things?
I
yanking my chain.
No, I don't know what that means. Narcissism, emotionally immature.
Oh yeah.
So please go find my Waking Up to Narcissism podcast. Early on, I talk about how the word narcissist is thrown around as if it is everybody. There's, as if 70% of the population is narcissistic, but in reality, it's about 3 to 5%. But we are all emotionally immature, and if you really just listen to that phrase, emotionally immature. So we react in an immature way instead of dealing with our emotions. So somebody that is avoidant as an attachment style could be considered emotionally immature, because it's basically just saying, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to do it. Now the anxiously attached.
Wait, so you're saying avoidant attachment in general?
I'm saying, but watch what I'm doing here.
Okay.
And anxious attachment is basically immature as well, because they're just saying, I'm going to hammer away at you till you give me the answer I want. So that's where it's like, start off by they're both.
I'm anxiously attached, so I just assumed you were going to tell me I was right.
No, because I'm anxiously attached to you. I would lie. I wish we were.
Where did I get it from?
I know, I wish we were. But so that's just, I want to say that like the avoidant and the anxious are both immature. So that if we start talking about narcissistic, though, that's kind of a whole different vibe. The narcissist.
Do you think that most narcissists are fairly avoidant, though?
No, there's different types. Yeah. Okay. So you can be an anxiously attached narcissistic person. You can be, that's where you start looking at covert. So the covert is more of that avoidant attachment where they're kind of doing things behind the scenes, and overt is the grandiose narcissist that is, that's out in the open, kind of manipulating. Yeah. And this is where the emotional immaturity, I think, is so important to recognize, because both of the anxious and the avoidant are immature. Is because the anxiously attached is typically really looking for validation. If something's not going well in the relationship, and I know this one well, then I'm like, hey, everything cool? Like, are you good?
Like, just give me a thumbs up.
Yeah, and then if they're saying, no, yeah, it's fine. I'm like, oh man, that didn't seem like you were really into it though.
Yeah,
I don't think that
wasn't convincing.
That wasn't good. So honestly, like, did I do anything?
Tell me again,
right? Yeah, right.
Like, I already told you.
And that drives the avoidant attachment even more. That avoidant anxious dance. But then the avoidant, I just read a book called How to Love and Avoid It, and they're fascinating because they are not thinking about the relationship 24/7.
What's that like?
I don't know. I have no idea. But so then if they're just like going throughout their day, and you're like, man, why haven't they reached out to me? They don't care.
They're not even concerned. They're not.
Yeah, but it's not that
not
they
in a bad way.
Not in a bad way.
They're so solid with everything that
solid, or they're avoidant though. I mean, because that's the part where a secure attachment is going back to, we're allowed to ask for things in the relationship, and it is going to be a bit of a sacrifice. Okay. Yeah. So if the anxious attachment is saying, hey, I would love a little bit more connection, that would, now I'm working on self-soothing and self-validation, but I would help me cure my childhood wounding, but then, and the avoidant is, so if they're just saying, yeah, I can't do that. But it's like, okay, typically that's where that anxious attachment person is the one that's saying, okay, I'm going to go read a self-help book. I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to watch videos. I'm going to figure this out because that will calm my anxiety.
And but the avoidant's just like going through the day.
The avoidant doesn't typically want to have that anxiety. So they're typically avoiding. So you
don't want to even have any conversations that would lead to that.
No. Yeah. So a lot of times the avoidant is the person that is, Tina, relationships are so much mental work. It sounds like they are, but they could be so awesome. I promise. I mean, they really...
You're combining two lives, essentially, while still trying to maintain your own. It's a lot.
Yeah, but the couples therapist in me, that when I get to see that really work, and here's the crazy thing. People don't know what they don't know. So they don't even know how to show up emotionally mature until they've gotten into a relationship and they find the relationship isn't working, quite frankly. And
one more time.
Yeah, so people don't know what they don't know. They go into a relationship and they've only seen a pattern modeled by their own parents. And I'm convinced that there's rare if anybody that we saw had a healthy relationship, our parents. And I'm literally like, you're a parent. But, we're all just trying to figure it out. So you see this map of your own parents and the way that they handled things. And you may not even have liked it, but that's the map you saw. So when I'm dealing with couples, and I'm trying to share a connected conversation, or how to stay present, or how to self-validate, they're like, okay, enough of those words, old man. Tell us which one is right, and can you tell my spouse they're wrong, and we get along with it. Can we get through this? So we just don't know what we don't know. So the anxious attachment needs to learn how to self-soothe and know that they're okay. But here's the problem: they don't know that they're okay because they want their spouse to tell them that they're okay. Because most, if not all, anxious attachments had parents that didn't validate them much at all. So they're looking for somebody. I will get in a relationship with somebody who will validate me. And then a lot of times the avoidant attachment, and I did a podcast a while ago that they have similar origin stories. So the avoidant attachment was most likely not seen as well in childhood, but they just felt like, well, I just got to do this myself. So they typically have a hard time asking for help. That avoidant attachment is, I will figure it out, I will do it myself. And so then they don't let people in to really get to know them. And that's the thing. A relationship is going to get to this place where, like we were talking about earlier, where you're only talking about the easy things, because when you try to talk about things that are different, it just feels like the anxious attachment feels like, well, this, if I open up about this, that person's going to run out of here screaming. They're going to leave. And the avoidant is going to feel like, well, what does it matter? I mean, this is just my opinion anyway. So they're both missing this opportunity for intimacy by learning how to connect. Yeah.
Okay, so go with what is the healthy attachment style? Yeah,
so healthy attachment is a great question, Sonia. So that's it's one that is created on the back of a unicorn. And typically in a field with a rainbow, and there's like a little leprechaun running around, and he's got the healthy.
Leprechauns are scary.
They are. So, but a healthy attachment style really is it is that I start to learn that I'm okay. So that's where we talked earlier about, I'm not broken, I'm human. It's the first time I'm ever going through life as me. And then when we get to the point in our relationships where we realize that we have maybe not been the greatest partner, but we can then say, but I'm aware of that. I can accept that, and now I'm going to take ownership of that, and I'm going to start to learn how to be the very best version of me. So it's a lot of self-acceptance, and then it is self-work. And so when a lot of the word self here, you can find your sense of self, then you are more calm, you are more grounded, and then you can be there. And if your partner is saying, hey, these are things that I really find challenging about what you're doing, instead of me saying, oh yeah, well, here's what I find challenging about what you're doing, I'm okay. Like, I'm starting from the space of I'm good. So I want feedback, and I've got a solid but flexible sense of self. So I'm willing to take in that feedback. But oftentimes, that your spouse, your partner, is saying, here are things I don't like about the way that you're doing this thing. Now, if you break that down alone, well, how about you maybe start with curiosity about, hey, tell me about how you're doing that thing. Not, I don't like the way you do you. Because that's the part where then I'm just like, oh, I'm not doing me right? Well, I got to figure out how to do me better. Can you tell me how I need to be? And that game gets kind of rigged.
Yeah.
What do you think?
There's no good response to that.
No. I mean, that's the part where in a healthy relationship, what a secure attachment looks like is we both recognize we are two people that got to this point in our lives, and we didn't know what we didn't know, and we were bumbling through this stuff in life, parenting, intimacy, finances. We didn't know. We didn't have any good model for that. So of course we weren't doing it the right way. But then when we finally can have this point where we can say, hey, I don't like the way that this is in our relationship, and then that takes courage. And if the other person is willing to say, man, you know what, this is the only way I know, but I have to accept the fact that maybe my way is not the right way, because that's pretty selfish. Like, that's pretty immature. But so then I have to be willing to self-confront. I have to be willing to grow. And then once one partner starts to change, what can get really difficult is you start to know that I am improving. I am making changes. I am becoming a person I like to be. But your spouse is still going to experience you the way that you've shown up in the past. So they now might even say, yeah, you're still doing this thing. But if you're like, oh man, I know what that was when I used to do it. I know that isn't how I'm showing up now, but I can understand why you would feel that way. But that is hard to do, because your spouse is going to say, well, I don't think you even really understand what you're doing. And we at some point have to stop doing that reaction of like, okay, you're right, tell me what I'm supposed to do. Because then we feel like we get to the self-betrayal, and then that is not a very good way to be connected in a relationship either. Jennifer, too, a narc will not be willing to reflect. Yeah, if you're really looking at it, severe emotional immaturity or narcissism, I mean, they will get rid of discomfort at any cost, and that's what was modeled in childhood. So things like gaslighting, it's a childhood defense mechanism. So they saw a relationship modeled in their childhood where their parents didn't take ownership of stuff. So nobody sat with discomfort. You alleviated that discomfort like nobody's business. You said, I didn't do it, or you yelled at somebody, or you just ran away. And so then you saw that modeled. So and then your little brain is thinking, well, if I take ownership of this, or if I acknowledge that I did it, then apparently everybody's going to get mad at me. They're going to leave me. So I did not do it. And if you really start getting into narcissistic behavior, that's where we start looking at that thing of the brain called confabulation, where you're creating a narrative in your mind in real time that I couldn't have done it, because then I might not be a great person. And then you're changing the narrative in real time, and you really believe that. Does that make sense?
That's what the narcissist is doing?
Yeah. So,
because they really do convince themselves, right?
Yeah.
Like, that is the reality.
Yeah. It's
and that's how they just keep pushing it, and it's like... such a problem.
There's a
like there's no solving it because
there's
like,
not.
You did this.
I will say this because this person has since passed. May they rest in peace. But a client I had for a long time, she was an older woman and she had really long hair, and you don't see that very often. I mean, really very very old one. And at one point she had come in and she had said something about, she said, well, it was like that time where you told me you didn't like my hair, and I have been bald since I was 19 years old. I don't ever.
That's not true. And
What?
I've told people that my whole life, that
What?
you've been bald since you were 19.
I was going bald though.
Yeah, but you weren't bald.
Well,
and so I told people
like
my
completely.
whole life that
Yeah,
you
but
started
bald,
shaving your head when you were 20.
Oh no, I shaved it when I was like 30 or something like that.
Yeah, I've been telling
but
lies
but
forever.
okay, but the point with this is that though I knew without a doubt that I have never made a comment negative about her hair. There was no part of me that I knew that for a fact. But her experience was that, of course I have. And she had told herself that I have. And so then it was really interesting because...
You've been thinking that for...
Yeah, and so then she's created that narrative, and when she puts that memory away and then brings it back out, it's like, oh yeah, Tony, just like everybody else, has made negative comments about my hair. So there was nothing I could do to get her to think that anything otherwise. But I knew that that wasn't something I would have done. So, I mean, it's just one example of that's one of those where then I had to drop the rope of the tug-of-war on wanting to be right and just to know that I know.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm like, no, that really isn't the case. Then that's where she could say, I feel like you're gaslighting me.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I can understand that, and that's really hard. Manny Man, but they won't admit when they made a mistake. They won't because because if they make a mistake or they do something wrong, then they feel like they are wrong, and so then they will. I mean, it really does literally go back to childhood wounding, and so then you will now immediately leave them if they are in even a little bit of trouble. That's not a right word. If they are even in a tiny bit of trouble, then you will think that everything they've ever done is wrong. So this is where that all or nothing black or white thinking is so real with the emotionally immature or narcissist. And so then if you have a different opinion than they do, then they think, well, you think you're right and you think I'm wrong. So now I need to... It
can't just be a neutral...
It can't be two different opinions. So then you think you're right and you think I'm wrong, even though that's not what you're saying. But so then the narcissist really knows how to then take that one-up position. That's where the gaslighting comes in. It's like, oh wow, really? You think that? Yeah, that's not the case. And and then you could come up with data, stats, or anything, and they're not going to admit the fact that they were wrong. And so they go into that one-up position and put you in the one-down position. And Mark, great question. Before that one gets away, is narcissism on a spectrum? I really believe it is. So this is where I think that there's narcissism on the very end, and then it starts with incredibly emotionally immature, and then works its way back up to the point of where it really does get to this thing of where you can bring awareness to a person in a setting, a couple setting, individual setting, and you can almost watch where you see this moment where it's like they want to just acknowledge that maybe that is something, maybe there's some truth in what you're saying, or maybe they didn't handle that the best, but it's like you just watch that, the internal mechanism of the brain just say, they'll say, okay, I did do that, but I only did it because you told me that you were going to do this, and as a matter of fact, and it's almost like you can see them catch their breath, and now it's like, okay, I almost had to admit that I did something wrong for a second. Yeah.
Okay, so with that, could the narcissist agree that they're afraid of making mistakes? Or
I mean, no.
Not even really,
yeah, if they're truly narcissistic, they aren't. You're wrong still. If they're incredibly emotionally mature, then you can see some admission at times of where they don't like who they are, and they don't like. But then you'll actually at that point.
I did that, but it's your fault.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say, and actually at that point, then you will see them. It's really fascinating to watch because then they almost slip back into, now they'll go into the victim mode because that's how they're going to get out of that discomfort. So you might see them say, no, I could see that, and then it's like, man, I am a horrible person. Like, why are you even in a relationship with me? And it's funny because you almost see that in a couple setting, and it's like, oh, we almost had it. We almost had it where, you just sit there and he's like, why do I do that? And then we can look at it with curiosity. Was it, did you see that mapped in your childhood? Is that the way that your parents handled conflict or emotion? Yeah. But then at some point, then they're just like, no, it's like, because I'm a bad husband. So I don't even know why you stay with me. And that narcissist then just basically forced or they're asking their partner to now tell them they're okay. So that can be really difficult, right?
There's no getting out of it.
Yeah, there's kind of not. Yeah, Sonia, over and over. Yeah. And Dennis, I did that, but it's your fault. A narcissistic apology is one of the most fascinating things. Oh yeah, Dr. Romani on YouTube. She's wonderful with that too. But it's look at Scroller. Even when my grandma was alone and left the water running, somehow she said it must have been me. Absolutely. And that's the stuff I see.
But is that where you're saying, like, they would confabulate that in their head to genuinely believe that, like, he left the water on or whatever?
Well, not even that, but it's like, yes, but also it's like they will create a narrative of, like, well, you were supposed to tell me that the water was on before you left, and you didn't tell me. So how was I supposed to know I'm old? I don't know
so
if the water's on.
So even if it's not completely changing what happened, it's still...
Yeah, and Mara, you can see their brain working overtime. You really can. I always say you can watch the confabulation in action, like that one for an example. I had a client recently that they were going over, they have this origin story of where they have this kind of narcissistic or phantom pain that occurs, and you watch, and that story grows and grows and grows. And it went from the fact of where it was just this mishap in a doctor's office to then it was like, okay, now everybody in the doctor's office was conspiring against this person, to now the doctor like took her in the room and yelled at her and told her to sit down, and then they were like basically cramming pills in their mouth, and and so that story gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's the part that's...
And it would just continue to, like,
yeah, it does,
throughout their whole life.
And the problem is the person in the relationship with them will say, I don't remember it that way, and then here we go, and they're like, well, yeah, because you didn't live it, or yeah, exactly, you don't ever hear what I say, so I don't even know why I tell you things, and all of a sudden you're apologizing, sorry, I guess.
And then you can never give them the aha moment.
You can,
so you just have to be like, okay.
And that's where
that's it.
Yeah, on the Waking Up to Narcissism podcast, I talk about these 5 rules of interacting with a narcissist. One is raise your emotional baseline. That's self-care. Because if you're interacting with an emotionally immature or narcissistic person, you really have to have your game together. Because if you're losing sleep over it, if you are not self-caring, you're not spending time on your hobbies, petting a dog, going on a walk, all these things, it's because you're just continually ruminating and worrying about, how do I get them to understand? Or wait, why did they say that? And then the second thing is get your PhD in gaslighting, is what I like to say, because a lot of people still don't understand what that is. And so you can go to somebody and you know that this is something that happened in the relationship. So that's why you're bringing it up, because you want to improve it. And then they're immediately starting out with such greatest hits as, I never said that. Or, well, you told me this, or you told me to remind you. And then you're just all of a sudden thinking, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're so...
got triggered.
You did? Oh.
Somebody said the worst is when they use religion to justify their actions.
Yeah, pulling the God card.
Very emotionally immature, potentially narcissistic ex.
Tell me about it.
It was everything led back to religion. And so then it was not only that I was doing everything wrong, but that God thought I was doing everything wrong.
That's a triangulation with God.
Like, it was this whole weird... and it's like, I believed it.
Man, that is manipulation.
That was so frustrating, because you can't say anything back.
You know what's funny?
If they're saying something about their passionate, like, religion, and it's God, and it's all this... It's like, there's nothing you can say, or you don't care about God, or you don't...
something about you.
I never tried that, dang it.
There was I got one funny story, and then I got a very powerful therapeutic moment. Okay, but I hope I remember that one. The funny story is I had a very immature couple in my office once. I'm going to change the story a little bit. Let's just say that they were buying groceries, okay? And then one of them said, I don't know, this is changing, but you'll see the gist of the story. And one of them said, yeah, I went in there, and the guy at the counter said that these steaks were amazing. And I just felt really drawn to this person. Like, it was as if God himself told me to walk back to the meat counter and get these incredibly expensive steaks, to buy the steaks. And then the spouse was saying, okay, that's interesting, because I actually was told that we weren't supposed to eat those steaks. And then I felt like they were like firing magic wands and spells at each other, Okay, the candle is so strong. I'm gonna put this out right now. I was having a moment.
Well, you don't like things that smell nice?
I was having a sensory thing. I really was.
Well, overstimulated.
I didn't know you could pull it out like that.
Have you never done that?
That's the way to do it, so there's no...
there's no... Yeah, put the lid on the camera. Maybe, or it's not a camera, it's a candle.
Lid on the camera?
Yeah, it's like, okay.
There?
It is. Okay, but here's the other part of that, though. So that's the one where I've seen people, like, fire the spells at each other, almost like, God told me this, well, God told me this.
Because, again, you can't argue it. You can't tell someone else that God didn't tell them something.
Well, that's where I'm going to go next, though. So I did my... it takes time.
It's hard to.
It is very hard to.
There's a way to do it.
Yeah, but it does... it's
not just saying it.
Yeah, but you got to feel... It goes back to you got to feel really good about yourself. So when I was doing my internship, I worked for a church and doing church counseling. And you would even get an individual to the point where, hey, they're in a horrible relationship, and you get them to this place where they recognize that this is abusive emotionally, spiritually, physically, all these things. And then they're ready to leave the relationship, but then they come back the next time and they're like, man, I prayed and God told me that I got to stay. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, and I would think that, like, they pulled the Holy Ghost card on me. And we would do these, they were group supervisions where a bunch of therapists would be together, and we'd have a supervisor that would talk to us about things. And it was interesting when I first told a case where I said, and then they pulled the Holy Ghost card out, and everybody kind of had a little chuckle, and it was because that's one of the easiest ways to get out of discomfort. Now, I'm not trying to deny somebody's spiritual experience. Yeah. Dennis can smell the candle. I know. Thank you, Dennis.
What kind of candle is it, Dennis?
It's a smelly one. But so then what I noticed was after, it was several years into that, where I used to feel like, well, then my hands are tied when somebody pulls the Holy Ghost card. But then I started saying, okay, I hear you, but sometimes I do feel like that this is a way that people's anxiety speaks to them.
And you would say that?
Yeah, and then most of the time it was enough to give a person a little bit of a pause. And that's because, again, I am not trying to deny someone's spiritual experience. If that's the case, then power to them. But a lot of people, that's how they get rid of their discomfort, is they have a get out of jail card in a sense. And so then,
do you hear that a lot, like in sessions?
I do. I hear it quite a bit. But then I think that people really, most people at their core, they want to be better. They want to do better. And so sometimes that is almost like this reaction or impulsive way to get out of a uncomfortable situation. So if I can say, man, I hear you and I validate it, like that, if that is what God is telling you, then who am I to argue?
Not that you're saying, hey, you're wrong.
Right, but then I'm just like, but let me throw an alternative situation.
Opening it up for them.
Yeah, just bring in some awareness, and it's almost odd the way people will say, no, I can see that, because I think sometimes they want to be better, but they just feel like I don't know how, and so then that's why I think sometimes we have to tell ourselves that I'm so scared to get out of this relationship, so it must be that God wants me here. Versus, I'm so scared to get out of this relationship, I have no idea how to do it. That's super vulnerable.
See, that's funny, because I was in a position like that, for sure. In that one, where it's like, because he would tell me, God is telling us that we have to be together, so it's like, then I felt like I was going against God if I wanted out.
Yeah.
You know? Because that's like what I'm being told, so I'm like, I must not be listening to God or whatever.
Yeah.
But then getting to that point where it's like, well, maybe I feel so uncomfortable because God wants me to stay, you know, like you do get it all weird and twisted.
What was ultimately what got you out?
We've talked about I became so anxious that I literally could not function as a human, and so he couldn't manipulate me anymore. Exactly. That he had to move on to the next one.
He gave you the discard, which is so, it's like a gift in a sense.
Oh yeah,
right.
Because I don't know that I would have gotten out.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have figured that out.
Yeah, and so spiritually manipulative, absolutely. Yeah.
He used the thing that was like most important to you at that time.
No, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like he took my relationship with God and was like, how can I twist this and force you to like hang on to it 100%.
That's like,
isn't that crazy?
So insane. Yeah. So it's like, I get what you're saying, like, yeah, don't invalidate anyone's religion, but that has nothing to do with religion at that point. That's literally just manipulation.
It is just, it's finding that thing, that's the most important, and then
if you were like a little hippie girl, he probably would have done the same thing with like something else.
Some other version of that. No, and I think that's like his move. I think that's what narcissists do.
So, and that's where I know I stopped this earlier, but when I was talking about those 5 rules, because one of those is so after you raise your emotional baseline, self-care, and then you get your PhD in gaslighting, you get out of unproductive conversations, because once you recognize what gaslighting is, you realize this is going nowhere. But the 4th one is where you set boundaries, and again, this is where we talk about boundary, not ultimatum. Ultimatum is you need to stop, criticizing my religion, or else. Versus the if you criticize me or my religion, then I will leave, even if it's just for the night. Because it's if you do this, then I will do this. Because if you're saying, and this is where they get the tool, this is where you're handing them buttons to push, where you're saying, hey, that's not okay for you to use God against me. What are you telling them?
And then they're like, noted.
Noted.
Like,
God's important. And where I see that, unfortunately, is when couples are starting to go through, and you see that divorce is inevitable, and then the wife might say something like, but I just need you to not, keep saying it's my fault in front of the kids. And I'm almost like, oh, okay, I know what's coming in the next session, where then, she'll say, and then we were around the kids, and he said, well, I don't want the divorce. It's your mom's fault, and then I was like, well, we just talked about that. But so that's where it's like unfortunately, you're handing them buttons to push by what's important to you. Yeah, and then the last thing is that I say you can never give the other person their aha moment or their epiphany. That's something they have to come up with on their own. And the more that you try to figure out ways to convince them, again, you're handing more buttons to push. Yeah. Yeah, Dennis, narcissists get supply from reactions, bad or good. I gray rocked my ex. Okay, and gray rock sounds like a fun time, but Dennis knows gray rocking is becoming the most uninteresting person in the room. It is becoming very just a flat affect because they need a reaction. And Dennis, it's interesting when you say that too, where I think that it's really a lot of times, if you really break it down, and I think this makes so much sense, but I think it might be nerdy psychology. Okay. But if a narcissistic person or incredibly emotionally immature person, if they don't like how they are feeling in that moment, because this is part of what they have is called the false self, so they don't feel good about themselves, then they need any other human to interact with in order to make them feel better. So they just need to interact with somebody, and as soon as that person says, here's what I think, then they're like, okay, cool. You're wrong, I'm right, I'm better, you're worse. Or, it's like they need interaction to just know that they are okay. And instead of just developing their own talents, hobbies, again, they operate from this thing called the false self, so then they can become whoever they need to be whenever they need to be it. And so that is, and that's why people that are in those relationships with the narcissist, and if they're continually trying to make sense of the nonsense, or they're trying to get them to understand, it just continually perpetuates we haven't even talked about trauma bond, and it's been over an hour,
We made an hour without trauma bond?
Yeah, that trauma bonding, yeah. Because, okay, I haven't looked at the questions in a little bit. Do you want to pick another one?
Ooh, do you ever see telltale signs that it's going to be a divorce?
Yeah, for sure. There's a researcher named, a marriage therapist, John Gottman. I think a lot of people have heard about Gottman. And matter of fact, I'll pull these up. Google.
Are you talking first session?
Here we go.
And you'll know, or does it take more than that?
Well, what's funny is John Gottman claims that he can pick it out in 15 minutes.
Really?
And I made a joke on an interview recently because one of my clients saw it, and they just said, I said, it takes me about 45. So I'm no John Gottman.
A little bit slower.
Yeah, but no, because it's like, here's what Gottman says, that here are he calls them the 4 horsemen of a bad marriage, basically, of the apocalypse. So he calls it criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. So if you
see all of those,
or a couple of them, and if there's a consistent pattern of your partner criticizing you and telling you all the things you're doing wrong, and this is where I kind of go back to that we talked about a little earlier today, where the behavior is a language. Yeah. So if they're continually criticizing you and they're not being curious about you, that's one of the first signs that I see that. And then they're in my office. I call them leading indicators. That if one person finally has said, I don't know if I can do this, and I really want us to be better, and then the other person's like, fine, I'll go in, but then they come in, and this is what's interesting. So I'll see each person individually one time, then I'll see them as a couple, and that's part of where I know. One person comes in and they just say, man, I'm trying everything, and I know it's got to be me, and what else can I do? And the other person comes in and says, yeah, she keeps doing this, and she doesn't know this, and what you need to know about her is... So they're already not willing to take a look at themselves, and they even think that, what therapy must be is I go in and tell the therapist what she's doing wrong, and then he'll help me make my point. And so that one's really tough. But criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. That if you see those pretty early on, then that's a pretty bad sign.
Have you ever seen those early on and still? Then the couple was still able to work things out?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's the part. Somebody asked earlier, stuff like, is narcissism on a spectrum? And what I see is, really, if we start with we're both emotionally immature, that then when you look at it from that lens, then it's like, okay, am I willing to admit that there are things that I don't know, and that I don't know that I don't know? And then it often does take a third party, a therapist or somebody, to then be the one that is trying to say, okay, you are being reactive. When you just said that, did you notice that your spouse is shut down? And then if they start to do the, well, yeah, but, and that's where I'm always like, oh, no yeah buts in my dojo.
In your dojo?
Yeah. I got a gi on, the whole thing. But at that point, then it's like, okay, and then, because when we go back to we don't know what we don't know, you're paying somebody that this is what they do for a living. I've been doing couples therapy for 20 years. So it's we got to learn that this is what I do to alleviate my discomfort. If somebody says that they don't like the way I do something, then ultimately, I would rather them be curious about, well, tell me about that thing you do, but that's down the road. But the first thing is, if you immediately then shut down, or you say, well, you do this, or whatever, you just have to start getting people to understand that's some of the problems with communication in general, is that we don't ask questions enough at all. I don't think most people, they'll sit right beside each other on the couch and tell it, well, I think you're feeling this way, and I think that what you really are doing is this. And I'll say, hey, how about you ask them?
They're right there.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it like a jerk, but it's very powerful. But then it's funny because people will feel, right now, if you're listening, think about, do you often ask your spouse about, hey, tell me your thoughts, tell me your feelings, tell me your hopes and dreams, like, tell me about that thing that you did, or tell me why you said that. But even if you're going to go do it right now, have you established a pattern, though, where when you have done that in the past, is it because you want to tell that person what they're doing is wrong? because you have to get to a point of where they're doing it because that is who they are and that's what they're doing. And I would have done it different, but of course I would have, because I'm a different human being. So when we can step out of our own egos and just kind of really try to understand what, who my spouse or who my partner is, and then appreciate that they are different, they have differences, they've been through different things, it will be uncomfortable, but man, that's where the growth really starts to occur. Okay, where else?
I have 2 people's questions loaded up
okay.
on the lives that I think you should answer.
Okay, do you want which?
Jackie's is first. Do you want me to read it?
Okay, oh yeah. Wait, do you want to read it? Here, read it, Sid.
I came up with that idea, and then you pretended like that was your idea.
Sydney, how about you read it?
Oh wait. Oh, I was like, wait, what did I do? Okay.
Okay. I'm a first-time new mom, and I feel like this is my life. I'm living the insanity with my boyfriend. It's like as if I'm living the cycle with him. Feels like the relationship has been over for 3 years or non-existent, at least so weird. Hate it, and I don't know how to help it or get change, so I kind of gave up.
Man.
Been saying, please just say if you want to break up because I feel so stupid. I know it won't work.
Okay.
Just for the baby, so I just feel like it's inevitable.
Okay, and Jackie, and thank you for asking that question. And I would first say that if you're not working with anybody, a therapist, for example, that would be a really great thing to do. And I don't know anything about your situation, but if you have maybe people's insurance might cover it, you can Google low-cost therapy near me, and there are people around. Because one of the best things you can do is just start to be able to express yourself and honestly to feel heard and understood. Because when we feel alone and isolated, especially new moms, I mean, my heart goes out to them, but you're just, I mean, a lot of times ruminating, worrying, overthinking, and then when we keep thoughts in our mind, do they go positive or negative, Mac?
So negative, fast.
They do. It's like it's a defense mechanism within us. It's we've said this before. It's like negative thoughts are like Velcro. They hang on, and then the positive thoughts are like Teflon. They slide on through because it's like we're wired that if we just assume that everything's going to be okay, then all of a sudden we're going to walk around a corner and there's going to be a grizzly bear there that's going to attack us, or somebody's going to take advantage of us. So we continually ruminate and think about the negative. But when you can express yourself, this is why journaling or talking to a therapist will really help, to just be able to talk through your thoughts. So that's one of the best things you can do, because you won't continue to circle and spiral into negative thinking. But then the next thing is, if you're already aware that this relationship doesn't feel very healthy and you're asking for help and you're asking him to change, or then at some point, then this is where I talk about raising your emotional baseline. So you need to start just dive in on self-care for yourself. And it can even be in the form of starting to listen to podcasts, listen to therapists on TikTok, read books, join a support group online, or do whatever you can to start to be around people that are maybe experiencing similar situations, because you are definitely not, what you're experiencing is not, I don't want to sound dismissive and say it's not unique. It's unfortunately all too common. And a lot of times what happens is when you say it's if I'm living the cycle with him, and man, you're the one that is there and having this experience as a mom, a new mom, you've got a kid, you want this relationship to be better. And unfortunately, a lot of times guys are just completely unaware of what that's like for a mom, for a new mom especially. And then if you are trying to express that to him and he's unwilling to hear you, at some point, the more you're trying, probably the worse you're going to feel about that. And so just, and nothing has to be immediate or instant. So if you just start thinking about that, hey, it is okay for me to want things in the relationship, and it is okay for me to want somebody that is going to listen to me, then over time, then it will start to help you build a little bit more confidence. And whether that helps you start to express yourself more in the relationship, or if you really feel like this relationship isn't working, it's not viable, then you'll start to make those changes, whether that is to look for ways to get out of the relationship. But if you're continually overthinking, ruminating, and then trying to convince this other person that they need to do something, at some point it unfortunately or fortunately becomes a you thing. You now need to do something. You've tried to get that person to understand, and so now it's something that you need to take care of. Did that make any sense?
You ate.
Huh?
You ate.
You ate.
That means yes. You ate down. That's a good thing.
Wait,
these days.
I haven't heard that one. I ate down?
You devoured it.
I devoured it. Okay. Okay, because I keep going about that one. Yeah. I feel like there was one more thing I was missing with that, though.
Go. He's cooking.
He's cooking? Am I eating more? Is that a thing?
You could. We're waiting for it.
Okay. So the dessert, is that a thing? But I think the part that it's the part where you, again, this is hard to do, especially for a new mom. You have to really get to a point where you know you're going to be okay. And when you're trying to ask somebody that is not being curious or not being supportive, if I am okay, if we are okay, that's the part where you're back there, you're handing them your buttons to push, or you're handing them power to then not, they're basically telling you their behavior is their language. They're basically telling you, showing you, yeah, I'm good. This is a you thing. So at some point, if it's a you thing, then you get to do something about it, and that can be pretty empowering. But I do think it's important to note that everything ends up being a little bit of the long game. It really does. We want to get rid of that discomfort now. We want to get validation now. We want things to happen and change now. But it's just everything's a slow process. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think as humans, and then especially today, we want things to be so fast
We
because it's
do.
what we're used to.
Yeah.
But emotional stuff just doesn't do that.
Yeah. Okay, Sid, what you've been looking at these. We got 15 more minutes. Are you cool with that?
Yeah.
15 more minutes.
Kelly said, I got her old version.
Okay.
Kelly said, boyfriend, 29 years old, of 4 years, won't commit or talk about kids and marriage, besides telling me next few years.
Ooh.
Do I wait?
No.
Okay, Mackie says no. Sid?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
If you won't even talk about it,
I go back. Tonight's
that's
theme.
my problem.
Tonight's theme is behavior, is the
Yeah.
language. So, and going back to like, how does he get rid of his discomfort? He just says, nah, not now, but we'll look at it later. We'll look at it later. And I call that one kicking that can down the road. So at some point, and here's another one that we haven't talked about tonight that I love, is this concept of your implicit memory, or what it feels like to be you, or what it feels like to be you, Mackie, or what it feels like to be you, Sid, is based on your slow residue of lived experience. So the more you're doing things over time, that becomes what it feels like to be you. So the more that somebody says, I'll do it later, I'll do it later, I'll do it later, and we get 2-3 years of I'll do it later, then that is what it feels like to be them. They will continually say, I will do it later, because they're waiting for the better time for it to happen. But they're not doing anything. This is the book I love of acceptance and commitment therapy is called The Confidence Gap. And it's in essence where people say, when I'm confident, then I'll do the thing. But you have to actually do the thing to get the confidence.
Yeah.
So if somebody's like, you know what, when I feel like I'm ready to be a dad, then we'll have a baby. While meanwhile, he's not doing anything.
Yeah.
You're not going to therapy. He's not reading
You're
books.
just gonna wake up one day and something's gonna be different.
And I see this with a lot of things. People that have had struggles with, I don't know. There's all kinds of things. I'll have people that they'll be in here to work on their relationship. There's maybe been some infidelity, but then they are both committed to making things work. But then there's struggles with intimacy, and the person will just say, no, when I'm ready, then we'll kind of start to talk about that. But what they're doing is every day that they're not doing it and they're not working on it, they're not reading about it, they're not trying to really self-confront, the more of what it feels like to be them is that they're not going to deal with it. And so, and then I'm not even trying to say that in a negative way. So the longer that you are not having a kid and waiting for your spouse to kind of like come around, and the longer that he's not committing, then over time, that is what it's going to feel like to be you. And that's what it feels like to be him. And I think one of the most unfortunate parts about that is that he is actually, David Schnarch, a brilliant, he's a psychologist and he's an MD, but he talks about, I cannot remember the way he expresses this, but he is basically taking your choice away from you. So by him saying that, I'm unwilling to self-confront on why I don't want to have a kid right now, he's taking your decision out. So you're not even able to have the conversation around why that's important to you. And I think that's really, really difficult right now. Because, whoever is the one that's willing to be more avoidant in that situation, in essence, is the one that has the control. So I guess it gets back to, she said, should I leave? Is that what she said?
Yes, and you should.
And what will be interesting, though, is if you have that courage to say, this is what I want for my life, because might be the only time I'm going through life right now, and I want a kid.
One go.
Right? Then you
Your
deserve.
dream is a kid. You deserve a kid.
You
and you deserve
do.
somebody that wants to have that kid with you.
That is excited.
And is excited.
Yeah.
Because it is super.
Because if that's your big thing and that's your dream, like, don't let some stupid
for real
dude ruin it for
and that's
you.
and especially like hey, by the way, can I say this real quick? Somebody, I didn't see the comments, but somebody's talking about love languages. As a real practicing therapist, bless their heart, the love languages, but they are not an evidence-based modality. And so I see them weaponized most often. And here's the best example of that. So we need to we need to learn how to validate ourselves. And so one of the biggest ways that people seek external validation, and I was this guy for a while, my love languages, if I had to say, they would be words of affirmation and physical touch. Top two that most guys that I work with experience. Here's the problem though. When the guy is not feeling good about himself, then he says to his wife, hey, I told you that what would make me feel better is for you to tell me I'm awesome and want to be intimate with me. But when he's saying that from a position of where he's not feeling good, and he wants his wife to make him feel better. He wants that external validation. So when he's saying, these are my love languages, why aren't you doing them? He's, in that moment, not being very worthy of words of affirmation and not being very desirable. So then what that creates is now the wife then basically has to say, okay, I have to manage his emotions. I have to manage his anxiety. So you're awesome. You get over here, you know? And so at that point, then he's like, oh, I feel so much better. And now he's even saying, so now don't you want to tell me I'm even more awesome and have more intimate times?
Yikes.
And so then that's where you get into this, you know, I'm trying to like not get banned tonight, but duty or pity intimacy. And so then it becomes like and so then that's where I'll get the guy later. They'll say, yeah, she doesn't initiate, she doesn't desire me. And it's like, because you're not being very desirable.
Because she kind of hates you.
Yeah, and this goes back to the anxious and the avoidant, which is pretty spot on. Where I did this podcast one time with one of my favorite guests, Dr. Jennifer Finlayson-Fife, and I had her on, and I said, okay, most of the guys I'm working with, if not all, are anxiously attached, you know, and they're always like, is everything cool? Is everything okay? And their love languages are those two: words of affirmation, physical touch. So I was like, and then most of the women in the relationships that I was working with, again, was my experience, were quality time and acts of service, and they were the avoidant attachment. So the dynamic I kept seeing was that the guy would finally try to back off of wanting to keep saying, oh, is everything okay? And why don't you desire me? And he would go over, and then he would provide the words of, the quality time and the acts of service, and then say, okay, so now, are you going to tell me I'm awesome and desire me again? And so, but at that point, though, she already knows, she's seen this game 100 times, or if not more. And so that's one where, when the guy can learn to self-validate and not need that to feel better, that's when he can say, I would like this. Because now if he's coming from a place of where he has a solid sense of self, and he can calm his own anxiety, and then he could, a grounded response, takes ownership of his own stuff, now he can say that I would like more of this in the relationship.
Well, then she'd probably be more open to doing things.
You hope so, and that's where
he's asking for, because it's like,
yeah,
then you're working together as a couple and showing love. And
that's the differentiation piece. So he at that point has been willing to sit with his own discomfort and not just say, hey, can you fix it with intimacy? But then the hope is that then now she will then say, okay, even if she's saying, I would love to do more of that, I don't feel comfortable with it, but now it's my job to go deal with
though.
And now he's been dealing with his discomfort, so now she can, because that's one where it is good. It is a good part of a healthy relationship. Yeah. So yeah. Okay, let's see. It's funny when people say this, and bless your heart, whoever Am or Wayne is, how do I believe this? You don't even have to. I've only been doing this 20 years, so I'm just providing information. But if it makes you uncomfortable, then go and seek that out, because I'm very confident in the advice that I give.
Can I say something?
Yeah, please.
I think that's a really good point that I've never really thought of before. Is like the love languages thing, like that could be used as like a manipulation tactic, because then, like, for example, like the physical touch one, like then you're basically able to say, oh, you're not loving me because you're not having sex with me. Yeah. And like that's like basically just turning the girl back into like an object.
Yes.
Like, you know, like it's like just. That's really sad. I hate that.
I worked with someone.
Yeah.
That started off like wanted to learn everyone's love languages, and then I noticed throughout the time I worked with them, like it was totally, because one of mine is words of affirmation, and that was only brought out like
when they needed something.
When they needed something, never when I needed it. Like,
yep.
If
That's
I
exactly
needed the words of never, but if it was I need more from you, or I need you to do this for me. Then it was, and I love you so much, and you're amazing, and you're,
And you see
so it's
that,
like
too.
It was being used against me 100%.
Oh, here's a good way to go out tonight. It's autumn. We need an update on ghost stories, because we almost thought we had one. Oh, wait, do you have another?
One more thought.
Okay, one more thought. Oh, come on.
Dude, 2 times in 1 night?
Okay, if I start talking, will you cut me off? Because I like what Plumley Hill Farm said. I have a fear of separation and then got in a relationship with a narcissist after my wife passed. And I appreciate you saying that, because it's really interesting, because a lot of times when people, and sorry about your wife passing, I'm not even just trying to pass over that, but I think that is interesting, where somebody often will go immediately toward the thing that they did, they don't want to feel lonely. And loneliness, this is where when I have somebody that's gone through a divorce, a breakup, or something happens, and you will hear the advice that they need to wait a year, before they date. And I think we've talked about this. If that person can wait a year, and honestly, not even kidding around about it, they can get in great shape, they can get their diet in order, they can learn a language, they can rescue animals, they can go to a meditation retreat, then that year is the greatest thing ever. But what people will typically do is that they will just sit there and just get so anxious and angry and beat themselves up and ruminate and worry, and then it's almost like, and the year marks out and they're kind of the same person. And so that is the opportunity. It's like,
what do you expect to be any different
exactly.
if you didn't do anything?
Yeah, and so then people...
One of the Peloton people says something like that.
Oh, what'd they say?
No, I can't, I'm not going to... Something about you can't expect results from the work you don't put in, or something along the lines of that, and it gets me every time, because I'm like, you have to be doing the things or nothing is going to change, and you can't be upset about it because you didn't do anything.
And that's there's a phrase that I want to find that is, and a guy said it one time in session, because his spouse is just continuing to not do things.
Yeah.
And he just said it so simple, and it was, I can't remember what it was, but it was basically, she's expecting it basically just for things to magically change. Yeah. For her to magically now feel better, and for her to magically now want more, to opt into the relationship more.
Yeah.
But she's not doing the things. Okay. Plumbing. Okay. Don't want a relationship. I'm happy working on myself and doing hobbies. That's what's interesting too, is that in that scenario, when you start to work on yourself, and okay, here's maybe not the greatest way to end. It's a funny way, but it's like this acceptance. So acceptance, we've talked about this, does not mean I give up. Acceptance means to take in without defense in its entirety. Did you remember, Sid? I see you raising your hand.
No, can you do one more question before you leave?
Yeah, I'll finish the acceptance thing. So it's like the acceptance piece is that I really will work with people and say, accepting the fact that I might not ever be in another relationship does not mean get 10 cats and back up a chocolate fountain to your house. It means that I'm accepting the fact that I'm not trying to figure out how to get in a relationship. I'm trying to figure out who I am. And then you'll start doing things that matter. You'll start finding yourself around more like-minded people and having easy conversations about things. And that's where a real connection can start, because you're not worried about how I do it. You're just doing it. And then now you're having a connection. That one?
I went a whole year without dating anyone. You remember, like literally almost to the day.
You did a lot of cool stuff.
Went a year, worked on me, did my thing, and then I didn't even care. Like I genuinely was like, I'm fine if I don't ever.
And that's when it happened.
Get in a relationship again, and then
which is kind of cool.
Here we are.
Sid, take us home.
Oh, one more question?
Yeah.
Okay. Husband has stage 4 cancer.
Oh.
I cannot deal with what's to come. And that's the whole thing. I just, what would your advice be for, life like that? So
it's a great question. So if I don't know if everybody could hear you well, but so the question was, a husband has stage 4 cancer, and I'm assuming the wife says that I just can't deal with the things that are about to happen or coming up. And so please go see a therapist that specializes in grief. I had a lady on, one of my associates, Marla Christensen, she was on an episode with me, and we talked about grief, and there are some cliches that are so real, and one of them is that there really is no right way to grieve. So you're going to have a lot of different feelings and emotions, and it's okay. And there are people that will start to feel bad about the fact that they feel like they don't want to show up that way, or they don't feel like they can, but it's the first time that it is you in this situation dealing with this really, really difficult topic. And so you need people that you can talk to. You really do. And it's okay, even if you need to rally the troops and have people there to spend time with your husband, that's okay as well. And you will start to grieve the relationship before the end of the relationship, and that's a perfectly normal thing to do. One of the first clients I still remember having such an interesting interaction with, I was a really new therapist, and they had been dealing with the potential loss of their wife for 4 or 5 years. And so then when they came in and met with me, and I thought, again, I'm a new therapist, and I thought, oh man, I'm going to need to comfort them a bunch and this sort of thing. But they were just saying they felt so bad because they just felt like, man, I feel like a sense of relief, and I felt guilt about it. And then I was so grateful that they felt like they could open up, and they got into a relationship fairly soon too. But it was because they had been mourning and grieving the loss of their marriage well before the marriage itself ended. So just know that whatever you're thinking, whatever you're feeling, that none of it is wrong. It is just check that out. This is the way you're feeling. This is what you're thinking. It's the very first time ever. Dino Shark Lucas, what's going on? It's the first time ever. And Plumley, okay, you went through that. Yeah, where the loss of a spouse. And so the first time it's you in that situation, and you're going to think things, you're going to feel things. And here's the thing too, that range of emotion can be all over the place. We haven't even talked tonight about the fact that, let's go back to the origin story of our feelings and emotions. And growing up, none of us were really allowed to have our own feelings and emotions. Even a good parent was saying, hey, Cham, calm down, or don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. So we're built with our emotions shoved deep inside of us. So when they finally have a chance to get out, they're going to go crazy on you for a little while. You ever experienced that? Just like a whole bunch of emotions? Like overwhelming?
Are you joking?
A little bit.
Have you met me?
I have. Sid, do you get like big emotions?
No, you guys are weird.
All right.
There we go.
Literally never happened to me.
There it is.
There we go. That's a good way. Yeah.
It makes me
Jennifer,
feel really
thank you.
good.
This is helpful. Jennifer, thanks for your questions tonight. I really appreciate that. Okay. Oh, man. Danny, really sorry to hear about that, too. See, that stuff is things can be really difficult. They can. And just know that, again, it is the very first time that you're going through life as you, and you are going to have a lot of thoughts and feelings and emotions, and start from a place of nothing's wrong with you. You're not broken. You are
human.
There we go. Good night, everybody. That would be a nice way to go. Sid, thanks for manning the chair over there.
Thanks.
Pato, thanks. Yeah. Have an amazing time. We'll see you next time. Go watch. Go subscribe. Go to our YouTube channel, please. Right, Sid? Virtual Couch. Yeah, new video up today. This will go up sometime.
Look at me. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, everybody. Thank you. Okay, good to see you guys. Take care. Have a great night. See you next time on this thing here.
It's what it's all about.